Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at congruent triangles. So the good news is, in order to conclude that two triangles are congruent, you don't need to test every pair of sides and every pair of angles. You just need to use one of these four tests. So let's look at the first test, which is the easiest to understand, the SSS test. If you have two triangles with 1, 2, 3 pairs of equal sides, then they must be congruent. I don't need to look at the angle sizes. I just know that, these two angles, corresponding angles, will be equal, but I don't need to test them. If you have two triangles with 3 pairs of equal sides, they must be congruent by the SSS test. The second test here is RHS, right angle hypotenuse side. So if you have two right angled triangles, their hypotenuses are equal, and another pair of sides is equal, then they must be congruent. Note, hypotenuse of a right angled triangle is always the longest side, and it faces or is opposite to the right angle. Remember, we said in a previous video that the longest side of a triangle is always opposite the largest angle. So the hypotenuses here are equal, pair of sides is equal, they're both right angled, they are congruent by the RHS test. So the last two tests here are unfortunately a bit complicated. SAS means side, angle, side, but it can't just be any sides and angles. If you have 1, 2 pairs of equal sides, you need the angle between those equal sides to be equal in order to use the SAS test. For the AAS test, it means angle, angle, side, 2 pairs of equal angles, but it has to be the corresponding side that's equal, like the longest side in both triangles or the shortest side or whatever. So to illustrate the last two tests a bit more, let's look at these two examples. So if I start here, I've got two triangles. They have 1, 2 pairs of equal sides and an equal pair of angles. But the angles given are not the angles in between the two sides. I can't use the SAS test on these two triangles because the angle is not between the two equal sides. In fact, I can't use any of the tests. I don't have 3 pairs of equal sides or a right angle or 2 pairs of angles. So I can't use any of these 4 tests on these two triangles. So that means I can't conclude that they are congruent. On the other hand, I can't say for sure that they're not congruent, because if they're not congruent, I would need to have a pair of sides that are not equal or a pair of angles that are not equal, which I don't have. So here there's insufficient information to determine whether or not these triangles are congruent. So look at these two triangles here. We have 1, 2 pairs of equal angles and a pair of equal sides. But we can't use the AAS test because the side given is not the corresponding side. Here the 8 centimeters is opposite a 50-degree angle. Here the 8 centimeters would be opposite this angle, which is 80 degrees, because 50 plus 50 plus 80 is 180. So 8 centimeters here is opposite the largest angle. 8 centimeters would be the longest side in this triangle, but here it would be the shortest side. So it turns out for these two triangles, even though they have 2 pairs of equal angles and a pair of equal sides, they are definitely not congruent. Because in the first triangle, 8 is the longest side, in the second, it's the shortest side. So there's no way that these two triangles could have equal side lengths. You can see clearly that this triangle is bigger than this one. So it's very important you understand for SAS and AAS that there are specific rules. The angle has to be between the 2 pairs of equal sides in SAS, and the side has to be the corresponding side in AAS. All right, let's look at identifying now which test to use. So often you'll have pairs of congruent triangles and you'll need to decide which test proves that they're congruent. So just look at the information that you are given. So for these two triangles, we're given 1, 2, 3 pairs of equal sides. So this clearly is the SSS test. In other words, it is the SSS test that proves that these two triangles are congruent. So let's look at these two triangles here. We have 1 here, 1 here. Both have a right angle. We have an equal side, and this side is common. So that means that it will be equal in both triangles. So in effect, we have 1, 2 pairs of equal sides, and the angle between them is equal. So this is SAS. So make sure you don't make the mistake a lot of people do of thinking that just because the triangles are right angled, that it must be RHS. Remember, for RHS, the H is hypotenuse. This side is the hypotenuse, this side is the hypotenuse. We're not told that they're equal, that's why I couldn't use the RH and S. But this is just 2 pairs of equal sides and angle between them, that's why it's SAS. Now sometimes you'll get diagrams like this where you're not given much information. All we're told here is that we have 1 pair of equal sides. But of course, 1 pair of equal sides isn't enough to determine congruence. You probably noticed for each of the 4 tests, there are 3 things: combinations of pairs of sides and pairs of angles. So what we need to do is we need to see, are there any angles that we can state that are equal? So that's why we did a review of angles earlier in this unit, so that you would be able to identify, for example, these 2 angles here are vertically opposite, so they're equal. These 2 angles are alternate, so they must be equal, noting that we have a pair of parallel sides marked. Similarly, this angle and this angle are alternate. We have parallel lines, so they're equal. So even though we weren't told that we had pairs of equal angles, we could deduce that we had some pairs of equal angles. We actually have 3 pairs of equal angles. But of course, there's no AAA test. All of the tests require at least 1 pair of sides. So the test we're going to use here is AAS. We have 2 pairs of equal angles, in fact we have 3, and the corresponding side. Note that this side here and this side here, they're corresponding. They both touch the angle with an X and the angle with a dot. That's how I know they're corresponding. All right, let's now look at unique triangles. So unique means one of a kind. We're sort of asking here, if we're given information about a triangle, is it one of a kind? Is there only one triangle that you can draw with those specifications? So let's look at an example to make it clearer. So how many non-congruent triangles can be drawn with the side lengths 3, 4, and 5 centimeters? So let's start by drawing one. It turns out if I draw a triangle with those side lengths, it'll look like this. Now this triangle, turns out, is unique. What I mean by that, if you were to go and draw a triangle with side lengths 3, 4, and 5 centimeters, your triangle must be congruent to this one. How do I know that your triangle would be congruent? The SSS test. Turns out we have the same test for uniqueness that we do for congruence. So if you are given 3 side lengths for a triangle, then that triangle is unique. In other words, you can only draw 1 triangle with those side lengths, and any other triangle you draw will be congruent to the first triangle. So there's only 1 non-congruent triangle you can draw with these side lengths. Any other triangle you draw with these side lengths will be congruent to this one. On the other hand, if I say a triangle has 2 angles equal to 30 degrees and one side 10 centimeters, that triangle is not unique. I know that because it doesn't satisfy any of the 4 congruence tests. Now you may be thinking, hang on a minute, you're given 2 pairs of equal angles and a side. But remember, for AAS, the side has to be the corresponding side. It can't just be any 2 angles and any side. We don't know that this side is corresponding. So that sounds a bit complicated. So let's draw 2 triangles with these specifications. So here I've drawn 2 triangles that have 2 angles equal to 30 degrees. Of course, because they have 2 equal angles, they must also have 2 equal sides. But the thing is, the side, the 10 centimeter side, could be here, it could be the longest side of the triangle, or it could be here and be the shortest side of the triangle. There are 2 options. It can be opposite the 30-degree angle or opposite this, which would be 120 degrees. These 2 triangles are not congruent. We can't use the AAS test because the sides are not corresponding. So what that means is it's possible to draw two non-congruent triangles that have two angles equal to 30 degrees and one side 10 centimeters. So that means this triangle is not unique. If I just give you two angle sizes and a side length, in general, that triangle will not be unique. You will be able to draw multiple non-congruent triangles with those specifications. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.